After I had the panoramic life review, and I had to sit down and reflect what a complete jerk I was, and what a failure I was as a spiritual being. We are not poor, pitiful, struggling humans trying to have mystical experiences. We are great and awesomely powerful and mighty spiritual beings trying to have human experiences, and we're just not real good at it yet, but we're attempting. That psychology must be in place. We must take that as the basis of how we look at ourselves, so that we know how to open up. We can't keep looking at ourselves as struggling, stupid little humans. We can't, because it's just not, it's wearing too thin. It's not applicable. We are not that. And after this being came back to me, and I was safe. I was struggling with it. I don't have any problems telling anybody that when you face and see the opportunities that you have and the ability of what you're capable of doing, and as rotten and as lousy a job as I did, don't think that you don't have remorse. We are responsible for making this world a great place to live in. We are responsible for sharing our inner knowledge and our spiritual selves with those that are around us. And why? I don't really know all the reasons for it, but I know that what we do here works in a microcosm so that spirituality can watch these events and take from this experience and help evolve other worlds and other universes. This is like the microcosm of how spirit can react in a mental, material, physical matter. All of a sudden, once this was over, and I was trying to learn how to forgive myself for what I had done, and I just wasn't able to do it because I didn't think I deserved that forgiveness. I just honestly didn't think it. But yet no one ever judged me. Then this being and I, we traveled. We began to move through tones and frequencies and hues and energies. And it was so wondrous what we were going through. And I kept getting lighter and lighter and lighter. And I could feel more power. I came to a place where I knew I was all-knowing, that I had the ability to understand and conceive of all things, and which is a stark difference from who I am now, what an idiot that I am. But we are, as spiritual beings, are capable of conceiving all things and operating in dimensions that we don't even grip. We are heroes. How you know that you're a hero? If you've seen what I've seen and seen who we are, because no one listening is any different than me, than I am. I know who we are and what we look like. We are radiant, powerful beings who, because we chose and were chosen to come here as heroes, we come where angels don't fear to tread. We come and we hold this ground and we evolve in a way that's like a Nautilus commercial, no pain, no gain. But we're here because we chose to come. We know the events that'll be played out, and we play them out so that the world that we live in has a value system in it that is spiritual in a physical, mental dimension. We went through these places that became like mountain ranges, and we came into a place where I could see cities of light, like in a fall evening and in a misty morning, you see the lights from the house radiate from a mountainside. That's what it was like. And as we moved into this city, I was aware of energies that I've never conceived of. I could conceive of a single drop of water, and then I could conceive of its molecular structure. Then I could conceive of that drop of water being the ocean, as if it was single drops or if it was the entire ocean. And then I can conceive as if there was everything in it, which is so wild when you understand the might and range you have as a spiritual being. And the first thing I was thinking was, why in the world would I have ever wanted a human life?
So in order to speak to why it is, we have to first say what we really are. Because what we really are is not form. We are not actually, at the deepest level, human beings. We are ourselves. You are you. The you that is experiencing this day to day is who you really are. And that you knows the human experience. You may be deeply wrapped up in the identity of the human experience, in the identities of earth and the forms and the teachings and all the things that we talk about and dwell in every day. That's normal. We're veiled while we're human. We don't usually have full conscious access to the much larger aspects of our nature and to the higher spiritual realms that are very, very real. So we see what is before us and we get completely wrapped up in just that. Even though that's the case, what we truly are transcends form, Form meaning distinction, objects, specific ideas and thoughts, places, all the things that we think are so real and are what make up the root level of reality. No, forms are the tools and the toys of creation. They are the tools and toys of spirit. We are here in something like a great playground or a classroom that is in a much bigger playground, we might say. And this classroom is full of very dense, rigorous, consistent forms that we tend to lose ourselves in over time.
And I experienced what I could only call a download. It was like billions of questions were answered in just a moment, instantly. And I understood. I understood everything. How the universe works, what our purpose is, everything made perfect sense to me. And it was not like I learned anything. It was more like remembering. I already knew it. And I wish that I could bring some of that back with me. I don't think I can. It's not that I don't remember. There are no words for that. Because words they're just symbols. They're not the actual thing. So I'm not sure I could explain or give you anything from that download, but I understood it. That was the important part. And this being that had absorbed me, I don't have a name for this being. I don't know what it was. But he said, Raymond, I want to show you who you really are. And it opened up again to another level. It was like the entire universe opened up and shimmered in front of me. And the white light was alive. It was living love, if that's possible. So it was like everything opened up again. This is the most exquisite part. Imagine you're like the Hubble Space Telescope. You're up in space and you've focused in on a galaxy. Little points of light all swirling around to a hot, intense, glowing center. I was one of those points of light, and there was an infinite number of them. They were all alive, and we were all connected. There was like one thing, one being. This was God.
I was slightly aware at that point that there was sort of a light body, is the only way I just could describe it, that there was some light coming from me, although it wasn't very prominent at that point. And when I felt that anticipation of what's next, as soon as that thought occurred to me, I felt my consciousness being propelled out of that black void into what I would only describe as an amazingly beautiful night sky with bright lights and beautiful stars, colors I had never seen, vivid rays of light, and what appeared to be almost a very intricately woven spider web of light. It's the only way I can describe it. The stars, it was almost like I was looking at constellations. And I was a bit of a science nerd, so part of me at that point was kind of looking to see if I could actually recognize constellations, and I didn't. They were completely different formations, but none of them seemed haphazard. They all seemed purposeful, and it was just so beautiful, almost as if you were looking through the most powerful telescope you could ever look through. I remember feeling that I was just suspended in this web. And somehow also, I was aware that I was part of it, which was really interesting. I felt separate at first, and then very quickly felt that not only was I a part of this web of light and purpose, but I was an important part of that web. And this kind of blew me away. I was amazed. I was like, wow, I'm part of this? I really couldn't make sense of it, but I was okay with not understanding how I got there, what this was. I just really allowed myself to kind of feel suspended in that and to just be. There was no place for me to go, no place I wanted to be. I had no sense of my past or my future. In fact, there was no sense of time whatsoever. Everything was happening in the now and all at once, which was a little bit mind-boggling, but I just loved it. And I became very aware that my 5 senses really did not apply to this place. I say I was seeing these lights and this matrix and web, but I really wasn't seeing it with my eyes. In fact, at some point, the lights were so bright and beautiful that I remember saying to myself, don't look directly at them because they're so bright, they'll hurt your eyes. And when that thought occurred, something pulled me actually to look directly at them, and I did. It's almost like I was able to join with them. It's hard to kind of find the words, but I looked at them and I kind of looked through them, and I got the sense that they were also looking through me into almost the deepest part of me. And I could kind of also see and take in information that was kind of 360 degrees, not in a linear way that we do in the physical world. And I also felt and heard these harmonic vibrations. I would say it was like the most beautiful choir I certainly had ever heard, but not human voices. Just incredibly beautiful harmonic sounds and also dissonant sounds, but somehow they all worked together in an amazing, purposeful and beautiful way. And I just was reveling and soaking in the magnificence of this place and the awareness that I was somehow part of it.
Ask them one question and you will stop them cold in their tracks every time. What's consciousness? They have no idea. See, it may be a product of the brain, but what is it? They can't answer it. They have no idea. It is the spearhead of the spiritual being that you are. And everything comes after that. That's who you are. You do know that you exist, and you do know that because you're conscious. I'm that person asking, who am I? I am me. I am consciousness. And an unlimited expression of it, no less. Although we convince ourselves it's not true while we're here. Oh, there's all kinds of limitations on you. Yeah? Try it. And that was one of the things that I ran across when I was just leaving this world in the near-death experience. Of course, it was so simple, and I just didn't pay attention to it. It was right there, and I missed it. And then you realize, of course I missed it. I wanted to miss it. You can't experience this place on the same level if you don't ignore those things. Got to. And they're the simplest things in the world. How simple is it? I am. It doesn't get any simpler than that. You're an unlimited expression of a spirit. There's no limits. And so if I say I am dressed in black, you just ruled out a whole lot of things, and you're no longer describing yourself because there's a whole lot of things you can be in addition to what you just put the limit on. It's unlimited. We're just not used to thinking of it that way. And that was one of the things that really cracked me up, because when I left my body and I pictured myself out in space, I remembered thinking to myself, you just met your larger self. And at that larger self, is so much bigger than anything you would have imagined that a God could be. I'm not saying you're God, although essentially you kind of are, but it was huge. That kind of rendered the question, is there a God? A rather moot point, because you just figured it out that if there is one, it'll be beyond your imagination. So how are you going to know it? I've been told God is love, and that seems to be something I've heard more often than anything else. And if God is love, I met God.
One of the things that I've learned, one of the many things that I've learned through my near-death experience is that we're spiritual beings first, having a human experience. So when we think about these things, we have these kind of experiences like I did, and we hear of other people having these experiences. I personally used to think they were far-fetched as well. But now I understand that given the fact that we're spiritual energy, how is it so, unfathomable that this might happen? It's actually, should actually be considered ordinary. And there I was lying there, this heart pump keeping me alive, all these IVs, wires coming out of me. So I'm looking down on myself. I could see myself there. And yet, while I'm standing in the middle of nowhere, I have the same green hospital gown on, but I'm whole. And I say to myself, what can possibly be going on here? What is happening? And in that moment, I realized that I was connected to the universe, the vast wisdom of the universe, all of it. It was almost as if someone had picked up the grains of my being and threw them into a strong wind and just scattered me across this infinite, timeless expanse of the universe. And it was such an amazing thing, because while I was standing there in that place, I felt like all I had to do, if I had a question, all I had to do was think about it, and the answer came to me. It was in that place I did not experience. I know that I've read some other near-death experience since I've had mine, but there wasn't, the five senses had no functionality in that place. In other words, I couldn't smell anything or taste anything or feel anything or hear anything. It was just me standing in the middle of this timeless expanse. And I understood in that place that I was not my body, my race, my religion. I was part of this love and light that is this expanse, this divine energy. And what happened next was so fascinating, because then I saw and became part of this web of twinkling lights. And the way I describe this web, which is what the book is named after, it was trillions and trillions and trillions of neurons woven together in this beautiful tapestry of twinkling lights. And they just were infinite. And they just seemed to hang on the ceiling of the universe. And while I was in that place, I understood that, from science class, we remember that a neuron has a nucleus inside of it, and it has the dendrites and the tentacles, and they all weave together the same way that, our brain is made, our heart is made, the solar system is made. But in that place, I realized that each little spark of light, or quark, and quarks are the smallest building blocks of matter, which are made of light. And I understood in that place that this is how the divine creates. The divine creates with light. God uses light to transform and heal us, and also uses that same light energy, whether it's an animate or inanimate thing. All things are one. All things are, it's kind of like we're all made of the same stuff. And as I stood there, I realized that we're all connected. Everything is connected. We're all one. And that was the message. It was a message of oneness and unity.
What we're doing here, we can't do in heaven. That's why this exists. What we're doing here, we're using that love. I see an evolution going on. that if heaven is going to come to earth, then it's got to come one step at a time. So we, in us, have what I use the metaphor, just like we talked about or sang about, the ocean of love. We are a drop of that ocean of love. We're a drop inside. I call it our core. And that in our core, we are that perfect love. And in our core, we are that total unconditional love. And from that core, we have all of the power that the ocean has. And we can give that love forever and have none less. Love is not like an economic model, all right? You don't have to receive love in order to give it away. You have been given it. You have been given all of the love that you will need forever. And that love is inextinguishable. You can give it and give it and give it and have none less. All you have to do is give it. Evil is just the absence of the love. So use your love, you have an unlimited supply, and put it into whatever you call evil. And that evil cannot exist with the unconditional love. So this is just such a wonderful place here, because you know and you practice and you teach and you preach and you sing that unconditional love. You have the power, you are the power, and you can do anything with that power. You can go anywhere, you can do anything, you can overcome anything. So, it's up here, this divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I have. But it's not about having, it's just, it multiplies, it is the power, it is the energy, and it is God's love. And that's the closest I can tell you as to what I've experienced and what was out there, what's on the other side. So have no fear, expect love, and be loving here, and assist the evolution of heaven coming to earth. Do whatever you can. Yeah, it'll be frustrating, but that's what we're here to do, because we can't do it in heaven.
I did not have an out-of-body experience. I did not see my body or anyone about me. I just immediately went into this beautiful, bright light. It's difficult to describe. Matter of fact, it's impossible to describe. Verbally, it cannot be expressed. It's something which becomes you, and you become it. I could say that I was peace. I was love. I was the brightness. It was part of me. I had no recollection of anything, anything biological. It's not like you could see something, because your sight is biological. It's necessary here. Hearing is necessary here. Speech is necessary here. It's not there. You just know. You're all-knowing. Everything is a part of you, and it's just so beautiful. It was eternity. It's like I was always there, and I will always be there. That my existence on earth was just a very...
When I first went into the coma, it was nothing but darkness at first. Then I felt my body, I felt my soul like be pushed up to heaven, well, through the clouds, through the sky, all the way up in space. It was sucked out like a vacuum. And it's like I didn't have a body, but I had a consciousness. Like, it's like seeing without having a body or having eyes or anything. It's like being invisible, but you are you. You have your consciousness. You are you. You don't change. So as I'm wandering around, basically in spirit, I was able to go back and forth to a place that I call God's bosom. I would basically be up there chilling. There was no time or anything. Everybody was connected. The spirit was connected. There were billions of other spirits there too. And we're communicating through the mind, even though we don't have a mind, like I guess through the consciousness. So I started to ask Spirit, how am I able to move back and forth through different time zones? And Spirit told me that my soul already knows how to do it. Like once the soul leaves the body, the soul goes back to the Creator, and the soul has already been there before. So it's nothing different. It's nothing new. So it's like if you ever stop and think to yourself and you hear that voice in your head, that is your soul. That's your consciousness. So when it leaves your body, you're going to hear that voice. It's going to be like you're talking to yourself. It's going to be, you're just going to know. You're just going to know what to do. It's amazing how I knew how to do everything.
You asked a moment ago why we plan incarnations and life challenges. The main reason, in addition to the couple I've cited already, is to experience contrast. And what I mean is this. I believe, and my research shows, that souls are made literally from the energy of love. Souls are the energy of love. So in the non-physical realm, which is a realm of love, we as souls experience no contrast to ourselves. And because we experience no contrast to ourselves, we can't fully know or understand or appreciate who we are as love. So we come here to this realm of duality because here we experience great contrast to love. And that contrast leads us into a more profound self-knowing. In other words, if we can choose to express love unconditionally, again, both giving and receiving it, under the most difficult of circumstances, we start to remember that that's who we are. We remember that we are love. And from the soul's perspective, that process of remembering results in a more profound self-knowing. That's really what an incarnation is all about.
Okay. You say that the soul contains all personalities from all incarnations. That seems like a lot to deal with. How do you explain that?
The souls will incarnate trillions of times. But it's important to understand that the soul is not limited. The soul is vast and operating on many, many dimensions simultaneously, and all of the lives are actually lived concurrently. You know, here in the third dimension we have physical space and we have linear time, but these things are illusions. They're constructs and they're teaching tools. Our souls are not experiencing physical space or linear time. So it's almost as though the soul is standing in the center of a circle with all of the incarnations surrounding it, and it can choose to attend to different ones, but they're all happening at the same time. Very similar in some ways to an old vinyl record, which has, say, 8 songs on one side. You can only play one song at one time, but that doesn't mean the other songs don't exist while that song is playing. They're all still there. It's just which one are you attending to at that moment. The planning is conducted by our souls, which are in both the non-physical realm and in the physical realm. In the physical realm, they're here as us. Personality is a portion of a soul's energy temporarily in a human body, but the soul is vast. It goes beyond one personality.
In that state of feeling like I had come home, the light was still drawing me deeper and deeper into itself, and I experienced such indescribable feelings of eternal life. And my head started to, my mind just expanded, and it felt like an overloaded computer. I understood the universe. I understood how everything worked and what the light was, and the beauty, the indescribable beauty of the light. It was showing me itself, that it was self-sustaining, self-loving, self-existing, that it was drawing energy up from within itself. It wasn't needing anything outside of itself for it to be. It was just in being. It was being itself. It was an uncaused being, and this being, this light, was just, it had everything in it that was good and positive, and the light was absent of all negativity and sickness. It was the very existence itself. And I realized as I was experiencing this that this was also my higher self and everyone else's higher self. And I expanded into the joy of being one with everyone else in their higher self. So there was the light and my higher self and everyone else's higher self, which was the one self, and there was this tremendous joy. And then there was this higher way of thinking and higher way of being. I want to share with you how wonderful you are in your higher self, your beingness, your beauty. If you knew, you would not feel negatively towards yourself. You would no longer look to the personality side of yourself. You would no longer look to anything else outside of yourself for approval and love. Even in negativity, you can have such great joy because you can be who you are against the darkness. You can be that light against the darkness and not be overwhelmed by the negativity. So yeah, I just wanted to share that experience with you.
And I was heading off in that direction about 1,000,000 miles an hour, and I right after my body dissolved, this feeling from the center of my being outwards, like the sun shining light, boom! It was like this ecstatic burst of pure freedom that just never ended, just boom! I can see why. But anyway, that's another video, the analysis of this experience. So this freedom just burst like the sun shining light from forever from the center of my being. Like, I've only felt that a couple times since then, that serious freedom. And then this joy sparked off. The freedom didn't stop. That it was like an energy coming from the center of my being outwards. And then this joy sparked off. Boom! And so it was freedom and joy, like the same way, like the sun shining light forever. And it was the most ecstatic joy, which I've felt a couple times since then, or a few, I don't know how many. And and then I inverted my attention and looked at my body, and or was just like orienting myself. And now remember, John and the earth never happened. So I'm this being that I always have been. I didn't even question it. I never had not been the being, the energy being. There was no question. There was no human thought. There's nothing earth. It was completely forgotten. Never even happened. And I inverted, and I looked, my attention when I inverted, I was like this energy, piece of energy that was sparkling, like, and my awareness wasn't the energy itself. It was just like, that was what I was in the middle of. And it was flying, like folding on itself, like as I was going in that direction. And then, without thinking a human thought, I queried, where am I going? But without human thought, it was just a pure curiosity. And everything stopped. It was like, as soon as I thought that, the freedom, the joy, all feeling, and my motion stopped. Right below, I almost went into there was this ball of energy. I was being retracted like a spaghetti needle back into my core source energy. I was being retracted back in, out of this dimension. And when I thought, or was curious where I was going, without human words, because that all was gone, never even happened. I got this full being realization. It was like the thought, it was like a quarter. The questions on one side and the answers on the other. And it just, I knew everything at once. That is the big me, the true source me. And that the energy line that I was being reeled up in, sucked back into myself, was an extension of my source. It was its energy, my energy as it, invested in this dimension. Now, the big giant round ball that was so vast, it was pressing on this dimension and actually pushing in on it, like pushing on a balloon. There was a dent where it had like pressed against the envelope of this dimension, which is something to think about. And then it injected like a piece of energy. And from how long I was traveling at millions of miles an hour or whatever it was, speed of light, whatever, it was a long ways away. It was a deep injection into this body, universal body, whatever it really is. And so I got I got informed because I asked. My query was the question, and then I received full realization, a full update, because I asked. And then I mean, I could see the visual of everything too. And then everything whoosh, shifted like to my left or something. And I was in this pure, like the middle of the universe without stars, this pure pool of energy, which I'm saying now, but there was no questions then. And there was this outline of this body, and I could see it. It was just like a light outline. And I could kind of feel it, like the blueprint of it. Of course, I didn't think anything. I just saw it. And these big giant puffs of raw life energy were going right through the outline. And I could feel myself as the outline, and it was going these big puffs of energy like going through, but I could also see it from outside of it at the same time. So part of my awareness was in it, and a larger part of it was outside of it. And then everything shifted to where I was in, like I was looking from the embody, the energy construct or blueprint or whatever the outline. I couldn't see the whole thing, but when I was in it, I could feel it. It was like a body, like this body here, but I still didn't have a frame of reference back yet. But I did feel when my outside awareness and my inside awareness, when this went in and it was all unified, I felt this feeling of pure creator being power, like the feeling one would have in full remembrance of your true creative power, the true source energy you are, the being itself, like without referencing having forgot about it, like on Earth, like we're in a state of amnesia here, unless we ask and follow through and pull it forward into the forefront over our initial programming from birth, or a little bit after birth, when it's trained out of us to reference our true nature. And then we start referencing our biological, social, cultural training. It begins, and the other gets programmed or pushed out of us. Well, actually, when we focus, like this is me in relationship to my family and my society and my culture, we build an identity. And that identity is who you know yourself to be, up to point. And the way we're taught to think here, that identity is built in relationship to everything outside of us, to your relationship to that. So to your parents, you're a guy, a girl, the references forever. This is who you are and what you do in this circumstance, and guys don't cry and girls or whatever, all this programming. And so we forget who we are. And anyway, so then once I felt the creator power, than like myself as pure creator energy. Now the funny thing is that was feeling in relationship to the energy body of this body. But I didn't know it yet. I didn't know any of this stuff yet. So it was just a direct experience with no frame of reference.
What we're experiencing here right now in the physical is one experience that our soul is having right now. Our soul is having infinite other experiences, some here in this life that we call Earth in a physical body, and some in embodiments that we don't even understand, because our ability as humans to understand what's beyond our existence just hasn't evolved yet. And that the soul, this void, this completeness, is just that. Our souls are absolutely complete. And that is a very clear knowing that I brought back, that there is nothing that we can do or not do in this physical life that would make our soul any more or any less complete. And so when I talk about what I brought back in terms of like a really kind of like clear, succinct understanding, is that in this physical life, when we think about the things that we do day to day, they have meaning here. How we feel is incredibly and vitally important. And the impact that we have on other people in terms of our contributions to how they feel is also incredibly important. But there is no translation, and I want to be really clear, this is from my experience, there is no translation of doing good here and having good in an afterlife, or doing bad here and having bad in an afterlife. That there is absolutely nothing that we can learn as a lesson that's going to alter the completeness of our soul. And so the beauty of our physical experience, in many respects, it kind of lets a lot of people off the hook who really live a life where they feel like they're constrained by their actions in the past that they can't change, and a fear that that may result in something in an afterlife. The idea of a heaven or hell, from what I experienced, is absolutely a possibility. You can create an experience for your soul to have heaven or hell, because as a soul, we're creative beings. But you are not sent to a heaven or hell by something outside of you as a result of what you do in this physical life. And to say that, this something that is just that fast has ultimate sway over the immense totality of our soul is really, really more reflection of where we are with our understanding of the soul here in the physical. If I were to kind of boil it down, I would say this, that the life that we live here, it's not that we're living to give the soul or the spirit value. It's that we're living this physical life in order to give the physical life value by allowing more of that soul to be awakened within us in the physical life.
Good. So, when you use the word soul, the way you're describing it, in my conception of things, it sounds like you're talking about universal soul, this vast, unbounded, all-inclusive totality. And in that respect, there aren't 8 billion of those on representing 8 billion people on Earth. There's one of them, and we all share that foundation in common, the way trees are all planted in the same ground in a forest. Am I with you on that, or are you actually suggesting that each of us has a soul that is as immense as you have described, and that there are billions or trillions of them?
So there's two ways that I've come to describe this, because it is both. It's both. But that's not an easy thing to really wrap our head around. So the two ways that I've come to describe this is white light is a combination of millions of different colors of rainbow. And if you were to refract that white light in a prism, you would be able to see each individual color. Each one of those colors is like our individual soul experiences. They're individual, they're distinctive, but yet they're still part of that original white light. The other way I like to explain it is a symphony. A symphony is made up of many different notes and instruments, each one playing a different role. And when you listen to it, you might be able to pick out different instruments, but it's the totality of the music that you really hear. And so the totality is the oneness, and each individual instrument playing in harmony or dissonance is our individual soul.
Good. I know you don't like traditional terminology much, but that pretty much jibes with the traditions who say that, you know, there is ultimate reality, Brahman or Atman, and then there are individual jivas or, you know, beings, but those ultimately are none other than that totality, Brahman. They just kind of divorce themselves from it, apparently temporarily for a while, and have experiences forgetting that they are actually the totality in their true nature. And that is really, you know, my experience where I was expanding into this oneness would be like me going from that point of an individual light, say a red or a yellow, going back into the totality of all the lights combined, creating a white light. And so, because everything in this place had already been complete, was already known, it was really clear that if any one of those points of light, any one of those colors, any one of our souls didn't exist, that completeness or that oneness also couldn't exist. And so each one was vitally important, no matter how bright, how dim, what color, if you will, using that metaphor. They were all vitally important because without it, that totality could not exist. Yeah. So you were like a raindrop falling into the ocean and realizing, oh, I am the ocean, I guess we could say, if you like that metaphor. And that thing you said, if any one of us didn't exist, the totality couldn't exist. It reminded me of a quote from theologian R.C. Sproul, who said, if there is even one maverick molecule in the universe, there is no God.
And you know, the idea of the drop in the ocean is something that I had heard as I explained, like, you know, to my closer circle, what had happened to me. And somebody used that drop in the ocean and it didn't fit. And only for this one specific reason. Because when you take the drop out of the ocean, the drop and the ocean are still the same. The important part of this is that each light in a prism is different. So a pink light is different than a purple light. And when you put it all back together, it creates the white light. When you take a drop out of the ocean, it's still the same drop. Each drop is the same because it's all the ocean. There is no individuality to it. It's just all like dividing a piece of the whole. The really important part about what I experienced was that the individuality is there. It isn't, my drop isn't the same as your drop. My color is different than your color. My sound, my pitch, my instrument is different than yours. But when you put them all together, it makes the whole.
I was discussing an alternative myth to the ceramic and fully automatic models of the universe. I'll call the dramatic myth. The idea that life as we experience it's a big act, and that behind this big act is the player. And the player, or the self, as it's called in Hindu philosophy, the Atman, is you. Only you are playing hide and seek, since that is the essential game that's going on. It's the game of games. It's the basis of all games, hide and seek. And so since you're playing hide and seek, you are deliberately, although you can't admit this, or won't admit it, you are deliberately forgetting who you really are, or what you really are, and the knowledge that your essential self is the foundation of the universe, the ground of being, as Tillich calls it, is something you have as what the Germans call a Hintergedanke. A Hintergedanke is a thought way, way, way in the back of your mind, way back here somewhere. Something that you know deep down, but can't admit. So, in a way then, in order to bring this to the front, in order to know that that is the case, you have to be kidded out of your game. You see, the problem is this. We identify in our experience a differentiation between what we do and what happens to us. We have a certain number of actions that we define as voluntary, and we feel in control of those. And then over against that, there is all those things that are involuntary. But the dividing line between these two is very arbitrary. Because, for example, when you move your hand, you feel that you decide whether to open it or to close it. But then ask yourself, how do you decide? When you decide to open your hand, do you first decide to decide? You don't, do you? You just decide, and how do you do that? And if you don't know how you do it, is it voluntary or involuntary? Let's consider breathing. You can feel that you breathe deliberately. You can control your breath. But when you don't think about it, it goes on. Is it voluntary or involuntary? And so we come to have a very arbitrary definition of self. That much of my activity which I feel I do. And that then doesn't include breathing most of the time. It doesn't include the heartbeats. It doesn't include the activity of the glands. It doesn't include digestion. It doesn't include how you shape your bones, circulate your blood. Do you or do you not do these things? Now, if you get with yourself and you find out that you are all of yourself, a very strange thing happens. You find that your body knows that you are one with the universe. In other words, that the so-called involuntary circulation of your blood is one continuous process with the stars shining. If you find out that it's you who circulates your blood, you will at the same moment find out that you are shining the sun. Because your physical organism is one continuous process with everything else that's going on. Just as the waves are continuous with the ocean, your body is continuous with the total energy system of the cosmos. And it's all you. Only you're playing the game that you're only this bit of it. But as I tried to explain, there are in physical reality no such things as separate events.